Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us for this MSA session. If you could, please share in the chat your name, what you're studying, what uni you're going to, where you're based, and I'll get into the rest of the presentation. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands that we're all coming from and their continuing connection to our community. We pay respect to them, their culture, to the elders, both past and present. To those I haven't met before, I'm Afia. I'm a security cloud solution architect based in Melbourne, and I'll be hosting today's panel. So as usual, we'll start with our MSA reminders. Then we'll get into our cybersecurity panel for today. So thank you so much to our panelists for coming. And we'll finish with a bit of Q&A. So the first reminder is about the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program. If you wish to become a student ambassador, we do have a link on the screen to apply. If you don't know what it is, it's a program that's designed for students passionate about technology who want to share their knowledge with other people. You can develop your technical skills, but also your leadership skills through AI-driven projects, setting up workshops, creating video tutorials, and more. So I'll hold on the screen for a couple of seconds. And I'll keep going. We also want to highlight the Microsoft Student Hub, which contains a ton of free resources for students. A key call out we always make is to the GitHub Student Developer Pack. I did personally use this as a student, and it's a fantastic resource if you want to learn more about software development, but also just about tech in general. Because we're having a cybersecurity panel today, I'll point out that it does contain a security monitoring tool, and it's pretty cool. It sort of gamifies a lot of the things that you should be doing throughout your development process to secure your code. So I do highly recommend you check that out. The next thing is all our sessions are recorded. They are uploaded to Michelle Sanford's YouTube channel, and we have a link on the screen here. So please subscribe to Michelle's channel and like the videos, and you can catch up on previous recordings if you missed them on the channel too. Okay, and almost done. The next thing is the Microsoft Source newsletter, which is a curated content, which contains curated content for the developer community. So if you're interested in learning about new technologies and want to find opportunities to connect with other developers, this is a really good place to do that because events and hackathons, technical training sessions, these things are promoted in the newsletter. So I'm just going to leave the QR code on the screen for a couple of seconds for anyone who wants to scan it. And I'll keep going. You can also keep up with what we're doing as the MSA through our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. So the QR code on the left is for Facebook and on the right it's for our LinkedIn. So I'll hold here for a second as well. And last slide, we also have in-person events across a few cities in Australia and New Zealand. So if you connect with us on Meetup using the QR code on this slide, you'll be able to receive updates for when we're doing that. So I'll hold here for a few seconds as well. And I'll keep going. And now for the most exciting part, we're going to get into our cybersecurity panel. So I'm going to start handing over to the panelists, and could I please start by asking you all to introduce yourselves and telling us a bit about your career journey and what brought you to what you're doing at Microsoft at the moment? Who wants to start us off?
I'm going to nominate George just because.
Thanks, Recco. Recco and I used to work in the same team together,
Yeah.
and I miss him because he was awesome. I mean, he
Thank
still
you. I
is
miss you
awesome,
too.
but he was awesome in our team. So, hi everyone, I'm George, and I'm based in Perth, Western Australia. Michelle's bestie, that's my claim to fame. And my journey is a little bit different to a lot of people. When I was around where Afia is now in life, I was pushing shopping trolleys. So I didn't have like this amazing kickstart. And I didn't really start until, my mid-20s. Did I start uni? I did a graduate program at Telstra just as I turned 30 years old. And I didn't finish that one purely because in Perth, the Telstra office didn't really have what you'd call a graduate program per se. It was more an apprenticeship for one role, and that one role was administrative heavy, managing the telephone exchanges. And the capacity within them and the capacity between them. So it was still super interesting if you like telco stuff like I do, but not where my heart was. So I ended up working in a small managed service provider where I got dropped in the deep end and learned how to do system admin stuff, which was a real blessing because then I went and taught it at TAFE. As you can see, I still haven't got onto cyber. When I was 39, I got a job at a managed service provider. Whilst I was studying at uni, I worked at Westnet, which is an internet service provider doing support. That was the key, right? If you haven't done a job in support, then you're missing what I consider an essential part of your resume if you want to be in any technology-related field, but especially cybersecurity. So I worked at the managed service provider. It's called Empire. They were bought by Capgemini. If you're in New Zealand, they were called Intergen. And at that point, I had been volunteering a lot in the industry with the Australian Computer Society, but I also had been incredibly lucky because my bestie got me volunteering with the Microsoft things that they were doing. So after a while, everyone thought I worked on Microsoft because I was standing at stands at conferences and doing stuff. But like that community engagement was really key. I'm glossing over so much, it feels like to me. But whilst I worked at Empire, I started doing vendor certs to A, give myself a little bit more confidence in what I already knew, and B, Microsoft had released, or Microsoft changes. If it hasn't changed, then we're probably looking to lock the doors. But they released the security solution area. Like it was Microsoft's going to have a play in security. So I'm like, well, I love security. I'd recently been attending B-Sides conferences, and it really set my imagination on fire to the potential for an amazing, interesting career. And then Microsoft said, hey, we're going to do a security solution. So I'm like, well, no one's going to be really across Microsoft security because they're making their move now. So the fact that I don't have, I was like, late 30s and I don't have deep cyber experience in my mind. So I'm like, this is an opportunity to be at the start. So I went all in. I got the certs that they had, and then I found work by telling the salespeople to sell me as a security person. And I had enough credibility with them that they did. So I was now a security person. It was that easy. You just tell yourself you are, and then you start doing the work. And you have to do the work. But yeah, and then I got a job at Microsoft in Recco's team, and that was a security team. And the type of security that we do in our team is we help people deploy our security products correctly, and we give them advice on best practice in using our products, but like more than that in securing their environments, because it's all well and good to stand up a product, but if you don't know how to use it and you don't know why you're using it a certain way, then there's not a lot of joy in having it there. there's a mindset with a lot of people early in career or at uni that to be in cybersecurity, you need to be a pen tester. And I got to admit, it looks cool as hell. And then you get to see, it glamorized with movies or TV shows and hacking in and stealing things and progress bars and, matrix things on the screen. Often it's quite boring. Attackers don't hack. They just steal your Netflix credentials and log in because you've reused your password. So yeah, that's my journey. Basically, I was in security because I decided I want to be in security, and I moved in that direction. But yeah, don't let your past define you. Just decide what you want to do and go for it.
Very cool. I guess I'll go next. So my name is Recco Bucceri, and I am a senior security researcher in a team called DART here in Microsoft. Yeah, I have a very similar journey to George. So my IT career started probably 20 odd years ago. I got a diploma in what we used to call the MCSE and the MCSA or MCP. And I started doing it that way. Went overseas for 2 years and did IT in England. And then when I came back, I actually took a break from IT and I just tried to do something different. And ultimately that wasn't for me. And after 4 years and around the age of 30, I actually had to restart my IT career. And where did I go? Was support. So I was an on-site support, went to remote support, and that kind of kick-started my IT career again, and eventually started to build up from there. And during that time, to help me get going, I studied a lot of, obviously our Microsoft courses and did a lot of our exams, which I highly encourage you that you do. And that helped to give me that background and experience to further develop myself. And after a couple of years, I actually moved here to New Zealand. And that's kind of where my security career started. So I only have been in security for probably the last 5 odd years. And what got me going was our product stack. I started to dabble in it a little bit and started to deploy it at a few clients. And I really liked what I was seeing and where things were going. And I saw this as an opportunity. And that's what got me going. And I think probably one of the most important things that you can do, whether it's in cybersecurity or any other career, is that curiosity. And that's what got me going here, was a curiosity around this. How could I do this? How could I implement this and learn it? And I started to get very involved in one of our products called Sentinel. And with that experience, there was a position that opened up at Microsoft. And I thought, let me just throw my hat, my name in the hat and see what happens. And for some reason, they liked me and they decided to hire me. And yeah, I started in the team that George is in now. And my role there was to, again, similar thing to what George was doing, was, helping people, get the most out of what they bought and help them realize, the potential of the product and help to upskill them, giving them the skills and the tools that they could run with our products. And then I saw an opening in our cybersecurity team, because one of the things for me was, it's all good and well to be able to deploy these products and that, but I want to see them in action. I want to see that, when there's a dumpster fire and, you can hear that World War II siren going, like, what actually happens then? And that's what I got involved in. And that's been a remarkable experience, because now, and I'm sure Andrew is going to touch on this as well, you're on the front line of defense. You're out there, helping people when they are at their lowest, they are the most critical state, and you're helping them to actually recover their environment, kick out the bad guys. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell. Andrew.
Thank you. So I've actually got a fairly traditional path into cybersecurity, but the timelines are the interesting things. So for me, I joined the industry after getting a computer science honours degree many, many years ago. I choose to omit when that was, but I was a dev. So I wrote code for a living. I worked for software engineering companies. Insert venture capital, companies coming and going. I found my way into Microsoft as a dev. and a dev consultant. I spent many years doing that, helping customers produce business systems predominantly. I will date myself a little bit. I was there when .NET was started. Let's just say it was a little bit of a rocky ride back then. For various reasons, with the customers I was working with, I moved into information management. So what you would now recognize as SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, but I sort of rode that way for a very long period of time, working with customers where their data was valuable. And that was probably really my introduction into security concepts. I sort of haven't mentioned here, I'm based in Canberra in Australia. Which means by implication, I've worked with a lot of government entities, and so that has been something that's been in my career for a very long time. Transitioning there is really where cybersecurity started, in a more formal sense, started to become a priority for me. I'm comparatively recent too, so probably about 2017 would have been about when I started to transition into more focused cybersecurity roles. I spent some time in a sister team to Dart back then, where we actually helped customers basically harden their defenses after they'd actually been compromised by an adversary. I then moved on to consulting work again, which is probably a little bit more like the work that George has talked about, where I'm actually helping customers deploy the technology and basically build their defenses before they potentially get attacked. The idea is that they'll be able to defend themselves if that occurs. I guess to close up, recently I've joined Recco's team, so with Dart. So I'm a security researcher today as well. And I will stop there.
Thank you all for your intros. That was so interesting, and I actually found myself really inspired, so thank you. I want to sort of point my next question to George. So we get a lot of computer science students attending these sessions or watching these sessions back. So George, what would you say that developers need to know about secure coding, and what would it look like to code with security at the forefront of your mind?
I think Andrew will give a better answer based on his background, but I'm going to have a crack. And Andrew, please don't feel bad about correcting me. So look. At its core, security is doing things right the first time, right? So whether you're a developer or a system administrator or a user, and just creating a strong password, doing it right the first time is important. So from a development point of view, there's a lot of well-defined secure development practices, and if you follow these, then you're going to avoid writing code that can be exploited. So one of the things I was thinking when Andrew gave his introduction was, like whenever I talk about cybersecurity, because I had initially that ISP/telco background, I'm always thinking network security, internet security, an attack's going to come in from a remote location and then exploit software. Whereas if you're an application security specialist, which would be all around, making sure code is secure, you might not even consider that. You would consider, well, how can this be exploited? Can we do a buffer overflow or, other types of exploits which take advantage of bad code? So if you are writing bad code, the textbooks give code examples possibly for a reason. It might not be as fun as just vibe coding with GitHub on the side. GitHub Copilot Chat is not going to lead you astray. So I'm not saying that you'll get bad code from it, but if you don't understand what good code is, then it'll be hard to understand if it's potentially taking you down the path to, the unique combination that would make your code exploitable. So the other thing to do is, if you are writing code, take advantage of the testing tools, so your static analysis and your dynamic analysis. Also, make sure you do your appropriate testing. Don't just test what you think should happen, test what you don't think would ever happen, just in case it does. And yeah, there's a lot of other publications, so depending on where the code is. So, you know, if it's a web app, you know, we've got the OWASP top 10. If it's an AI app, OWASP have got like an AI top 10 now as well. There's a lot of industry publications to steer you towards secure code. But yeah. Andrew, what did I miss?
Lots of good stuff there, George. Probably the thing I'm going to throw in, you're touching on concepts like secure in design, you know, from the outset, secure in development as you're going. Secure in deployment is a concept I'd like to just throw in.
Yeah.
And an example that a lot of the work that Recco and I do daily is usually dealing with the fallout of overprivileged identities, and that could include applications that can do more than they're supposed to. So this means that if that application does have a problem, even after all the good effort that's gone in constructing it, the actual fallout of that could be actually quite massive. So there's a lot of things that we worry about, particularly with cloud deployments these days, of making sure that the identity of the applications used are actually appropriately constrained. So that's a secure in deployment concept. So there was back in the day, actually one of my team members created stickers that said it works on my machine. A lot of developers would actually code away on their machine. It would work fine. And then you'd actually start merging the source back into the main tree, things would go wrong. Partially with that is that they were actually running in a way with privilege that the code would not actually get in other environments. So this concept of actually having an eye on where your code's going, where it will be running, and getting it to run like that as soon as possible is quite important. Go to Recco. Any comments there?
Actually, I just want to just echo what Michelle just put in the chat, and that's basically do not vibe code. And I really do like that. The AI is meant to aggregate. So Copilot and that is meant to help you with what you're doing, and not meant to, you click a button and you sit and you watch the action and then take full credit. You're meant to use it to help supplement and help improve what you're doing or help you learn. So don't just let it do its job for you. Otherwise, it will take your job.
Hey, thank you everyone for sharing your insights on that question. And I'm going to pivot a little bit for the next question. So, talking about tech and tooling with cybersecurity is really cool stuff, but something that sort of always comes up is that your cybersecurity is as strong as, I guess, your practices or your processes or the culture you have in your team around applying it. So your people are kind of your biggest asset. So I would love to hear each of your thoughts on what makes a good cybersecurity culture and why it is so important.
Oh, okay. I think I'll start then. We've got a saying where, attackers don't break in, they log in. So your identities in that it's super important that you have security in the forefront of your mind. So as defenders, I always like to say that, we have to be right 100% of the time, where an attacker only needs to be right once. So having what we call that defense in depth, it's almost like if you think of those olden day castles with all those different walls leading up to that keep, and you want to be able to have all of those things in place so that if someone does happen to get through, because we live in that day and age now where, eventually an attacker is going to find that little hole, that little open window, and is going to get through. But if you have those systems in place that can help stop them or slow them down, the whole point is to give you or your security team the time to be able to, you know, take action, to be able to evict, to lock down and just re-secure your environment. So for yourselves, I think probably the best thing that you can do is ask yourself, is your personal life secure? You know, simple things like setting up that your Gmail or whatever online services that you've got, have you properly got those locked down? Have you set up multi-factor authentication so that you know that you won't be compromised? And we live in a day and age now where password management is a thing. You know, I don't know. I've certainly done it, you know, in the past where I would use a password for a lot of things, and you know, if one site got compromised, they would use those credentials to log into something else. So if you go to, what is the name of that site? Have I been pwned? You know, and you go into your email address there, and you see where your accounts, or at least where you've potentially been compromised. It's a great start. So yeah, secure yourself, secure those around you, and just make it part of your everyday lifestyle, your everyday habits.
I might jump in and really just re-emphasize a point that you've made. Things like unique passwords and particularly MFA, if the people that Recco and I deal with on a daily basis actually did that, I think our lives would be much more boring. But
100%.
This is not an episode or a part of a James Bond movie. And I think Recco made point this before, is that we do not necessarily have people producing custom malware to target every individual customer. Personally, they literally just do the low-hanging fruit things. And if they're financially motivated, that's all they need to do. They just move on to the next one if it didn't work. So just this basic hygiene that was just spoken about, doing that in your personal life and being champions in your professional lives will actually really move everybody forward here. Probably just one extra comment there, just in terms from a business perspective. Security has to be accessible. Security controls have to be accessible. We are here to enable business to function securely. A mistake that even before I got into this type of work, a mistake I saw businesses make is that they would put security first and business second. As soon as you have too many obstacles in the front of a person whose goal is a business outcome, they will find ways to work around it. Humans are very innovative creatures. They will break your controls if you don't give them something that will work for them. And implementations of things like MFA is actually one example. I'll stop there. George, anything to throw in?
Afia, can you repeat the question, please? I have a really good answer. I just want to make sure it's actually answering the question.
Sure. So in summary, my question was, what do you think makes a good cybersecurity culture and why is it important?
Okay, good. So trust, right? Because when you're working in or trying to achieve good security outcomes, it's a team sport, right? But like it's the team might be larger than you think, right? Because you might be just thinking, oh well, the team is the people in the team doing the controls, but it's not. Like security is everyone's responsibility is a phrase that we like to banter about. So you know that's why Recco and David are talking about things that the individual can do, but they're really important. But it's a bit of a boring answer, right? But it's like the most important thing that can happen. So I don't want to dismiss it. But like that's why you don't see, all right, everyone secure passwords in a Hollywood movie, because it would be like the bestseller and put Temazepam out of business. That's a sleeping pill for those who sleep well without help. But we've got all these other issues around trust now. So I'm really lucky. I get to speak to interesting people. One of my friends, she's the CISO for Fortescue Metals Group, and I was talking to her just the other day, and she told me her biggest cyber problem she's facing internally is insider risk. So they put all these security controls in place, and then you know, they'll make exceptions for their users, and the users abuse it immediately, right? So
That's
that's an
similar to what
abuse of
Angel was
trust.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second one is deep fakes, right? Trying to take the trust that you earn and using it against you, right? So in a cyber like deep fakes, like using technology to create a video of someone that looks real but isn't real. That's in my mind just a continuation of the email from the Nigerian prince who wants to give you your inheritance if only you can prove the bank account works first, right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just deception, just the scale has gone up. So trust is not only trusting your team, trusting the people you're protecting, but it's also trusting the world and having a healthy amount of skepticism somewhere in the middle, to try and validate whether or not you should be trusting. We have this architecture, which it's like literally just came to me like, wow, it's really appropriate calling it zero trust, right? Because zero trust is a cybersecurity architecture that Microsoft adopts with all of its products. It's like an open source cybersecurity framework. So if you're interested, you should have a look at it. If you're going into cybersecurity, having a zero trust architecture can minimize Recco and Andrew's work if they're being called in because your organization's having a bad day. But just like, yeah, the trust is the opposite to the bad day. Right. So if you have that trust in your team, and something goes wrong, then you'll be able to find ways to recover from it a lot quicker than if you have to, you know, fight every step or yeah. But I guess the one last thing is, you know, like the people who like threat actors or, you know, hackers or whatever you want to call them. I think hackers are good people, and the thieves have stolen the name, but they'll exploit that trust. All right, they'll take advantage of it. So business email compromise is one of the most expensive cyber attacks, and that's essentially someone's user account will be stolen. So, you know, that person has broken the trust of their organization in securing their credential, right? And then the person who stole the credential will log in and act as that person, often registering MFA for the person so they look more legitimate than the person did beforehand. And then they'll start sending emails using that person's credibility inside the organization, asking for things, you know, like, oh my God, it's a super urgent request from the CEO. Can you please pay this invoice? And a lot of the time, because that person's trusted and because the attacker understands how to abuse that trust, they'll get what they want, which is money. So yeah, trust. Thanks.
But you've seen that, so separate from a business point of view. I mean, who's seen that for themselves, where you get that email from Facebook, oh, you need to urgently do this thing or change their password or something like that, and you like, oh, I got to do it right now, and then 3 minutes in, you've realized that you've handed over the keys to the kingdom.
No, I wouldn't. But
Hey, I can admit that I've done it by mistake. You know, you get distracted, you're doing something, you're not feeling well. It's the first thing in the morning, and you just, you know, you're blindly clicking things, and you know, just doing things automatically. And then next thing you know, you've realized, hang on a sec, that didn't seem right. Why did I do that? And then you go back and you know, you've realized that you've given up something.
oh, it's not that. I just wouldn't see the email.
No.
But my Facebook email is a Gmail. Okay, so oh gosh, I've given away half of my email address. But Gmail allows you to have addresses with a dot, and it will pass it to the same mailbox, but other services will see it differently. I'm currently sharing my email for Facebook with 2 other users, and I receive notifications for 2 other accounts into my email. And if I were of a mind, I can log them out and log into their accounts because I own their second. So yeah, it's pretty dodgy. At least I know
Good thing
I'm
you
the
have
only one who can
MFA
log into
then,
the
eh?
mailbox, but yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's pretty crazy out there.
We might take some questions from the audience now. Does anyone want to come off mute or ask any questions in the chat?
Don't be afraid, we won't bite. No? No one? Do we need to start calling
I've got
people
an
out?
answer. Do you think cyber is a better career than AI? Yes, I think AI will keep people in cyber careers.
Why does it need?
AI?
Why does it need to be either or? I think is another way of saying
Why can't it be both? Yeah, what's that meme? Yeah.
It's actually, there's a really interesting point here. A lot of what Recco and I work on is actually very data driven. There is
all of it is, yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed a number of people that have commented about what they're studying and so on. There's a lot of people that have got data science in some form in there. This is absolutely a space for you. Think of it, from a hunting for a needle in a haystack. A customer may have something bad have gone on and they want to know, well, how bad was it? Just answering that question means a lot of data has to be collected and analyzed. For large enterprises, when I say a lot of data, that's beyond the mental capacity of a team of humans. So absolutely tooling, just big data tooling that you're probably already dealing with, and AI now and moving forward are going to be absolutely essential to actually do what we do on a daily basis.
But I mean, like looking at that data, I mean, if you, I always think of, when you get that picture where it's a whole bunch of stuff happening on one, then it's duplicated in the other, but there's slight subtle differences, and then you having to find those differences. And that's essentially what cybersecurity is like. It's like understanding what is normal and trying to work out what has changed. And when you are sifting through that hordes of data and you're able to start picking out what the threat actor was done, how they got in, who was patient zero, and then starting to create that like breadcrumb trail of where they went to and what they did throughout the environment. It's really it's an extraordinary experience. It's really cool to see, and it's really cool to work at. It's very rewarding. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So Dimitri asked in chat, what are some of the AI tools worth learning or looking into for cybersecurity? My view is that cybersecurity is a technology professional role. So any kind of ability to work with the technological tools and understand how they work is of benefit. So obviously, Microsoft has the security copilot. So that one's a bit hard to get exposure to unless you're in an organization willing to, pay the bill. But in order to be able to engage with Security Copilot, having a really strong understanding of how to engage with a large language model, whether it's M365 chat, or one of our copilots, or ChatGPT, or GitHub Copilot, or even just if you do your on-device stuff with Foundry Local, but just learning how to get the most out of a large language model, and also understanding how to, like, what they're good for, because then you'll be able to use it to accelerate. Like, they're really good at summarizing, they're really good at synthesizing data, and if you can do basic agentic flows, then that would be an amazing sort of assist, because the best or the most interesting, I think best is very subjective, but people in cyber, if you can write your own tools to solve your own problems quickly, you have like a massive advantage if you're in the middle of an incident response and you need to pass like huge amounts of data, but you don't have access to the cloud to be able to spin up something locally and write a solution would be huge. Otherwise, normally you'd be, learning Python and writing your scripts in there using the data analytics type platform. And just to address Way's question, and then maybe the others will have a view. Solution architecture is all around either building the existing, if you're ever lucky enough to be in a greenfields environment, like making sure you've got good cybersecurity foundations down, or if you're in an existing environment, solution architecture often means how do we deploy this new thing securely, or how do we get this new security product in without breaking everything securely.
I might jump in with a few of those things. I'll pick up that three because that was literally my last role in Microsoft as a security architect. A lot of what I and my team did was actually modernize our customers from a security posture perspective. A lot of our customers were running with 10 or 15 years of technical debt. Often that is actually the root cause of their compromise if that actually happens.
What does technical debt mean?
Oh, great question. That they actually haven't kept on top of their versions of their technologies or even their technologies themselves. They haven't been patched. Maybe patches were never available. So they've just got an entire environment with vulnerabilities everywhere waiting for a bad actor to do something terrible with. The problem is you can't pay down technical debt overnight. It's a journey. It's a modernization or a transformational journey. And that's a lot of the work that I did. So my contribution to that question is that we use a concept called zero trust from an architectural standpoint. A lot of customers, pretty well most of that I deal with, have a more traditional, what I might call a castle and moat architecture where they just think they're hiding behind a big firewall. That's cybersecurity done and dusted. Well, it isn't. It's terrible. Doesn't work. Doesn't scale. Doesn't work with the cloud. So with zero trust, we actually start is an architectural pattern. Use your favorite search engine to have a look into it. And from a Microsoft standpoint, there's actually a whole heap of technologies which can help implement that. Coming back to sort of the first question, there was a couple of points that George was touching on today. I just want to call out. There's a whole heap of types of roles in cybersecurity. Where we've been talking about technicians, there are people that are going to be looking at the data that we were just talking about, looking for that needle in the haystack. There'll be others that will actually be thinking about the human interface, maybe the policies. There'll be more that are maybe interested in actually the infrastructure that's associated with it. So there's a whole heap of things that can come into play in this space. And depending on what your role is, your potential use of AI will actually be very, very different. If you're in a SOC, George called out Security Copilot. That would be a tool that you are very likely to be wanting to use and getting across. If you're doing the researching role, Security Copilot may not be the tool that we reach for on a daily basis, but we may actually use artifacts from it. So just to note that this is a very big field and there's not one tool that will fit all roles. I'll stop. Recco, I've been talking too long.
Not really much to add other than, you're trying to find that fine line between giving your users as much as they need to be productive while keeping the guardrails up so that they don't, break things and accidentally let the bad guy in. And that's what, you're doing as a solutions architect. But Andrew, 100% right. Cybersecurity is just like an umbrella with a whole bunch of things that actually happen underneath it and a whole bunch of different roles that you can get involved in. So I've been a solutions architect and now, more infrastructure side with that compromise and recovery. So, it just depends on what you're curious about and what it is that you're looking to do. So, yeah, not much more to add.
I was just pulling on that thread of breadth. For those in Australia, look into the Australian Information Security Association. That is the Australian industry body for security professionals. The membership for students is quite heavily discounted. But the reason why I call that out is that they have regular seminars, whether either cloud or if potentially physically, if they happen to have a branch in the city you live in. The reason why they call this out is the breadth that particular association has. There's probably more non-technical people in there than there are technical. So it's if you're on a path of going, well, where do I fit, or what should my journey look like for cybersecurity, and you're needing ideas, an organisation like that might actually help just in terms of exposure. They also host CyberCon in Melbourne every year, and there's a follow-up in Canberra as well. So a plug for them, but there's more that career-oriented component, which is maybe useful to look at.
We are at time today. Thank you so much to our panelists for a really interesting discussion, and to our attendees for asking questions in the chat. Just before we finish, I'm just going to share this QR code for our feedback survey. Please let us know what you would like to see in these sessions. If you have any feedback for us for what we could do better, we do check this form every month before we plan for our new session. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you everyone so much for coming, and I hope to see you next month.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Cheers.